Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Streaming Alchemy. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, we're going to look at a couple of different ways that you can recreate sort of the over-the-shoulder graphic shot using a lockdown camera and vMix. So before we get into that, though, I want to invite everybody, if you have any comments, any questions, just post them below, and we'll try to get to everything here live on the show. Also, if you'd like to join us live on the show, we do have a link in the show notes and sort of over here. And you can just take that and somebody from the studio will get you on to join us live on air. So let's dive in right away. And I think we have a few comments that have come in. So we have a lot of hellos. Ernesto wished us all a happy Friday. So Ernesto, thank you. We have Kyle. Hello, Kyle. Thanks for joining. So Spatial, how are you? Great to see you, Spatial. And yeah, that's includes everybody with the Earthling side. So hello, hello you. How are you? Great to see you here. And Cerebus Media and Production. Thank you. I appreciate you joining, Cerebus. Okay, so to sort of frame what I'm talking about, I want to just put up this quick picture I generated in AI to give you a sense of what is an over-the-shoulder shot. And traditionally, it's been that graphic that sort of comes up on the right hand or the left-hand side of the presenter, the right-hand side of the screen in typical sort of production tradition. And it usually is a graphic image that shows what's going to be happening in the current story, current discussion, whatever. So it's some sort of image and basic text that sets the framework for what's going to be discussed next. And in order to make that shot happen, you are typically going from somebody that's being centered on the screen and then having usually what's called a truck, where you just move a camera on some sort of dolly to the left or the right, some sort of tracks. So you just truck the camera to the left-hand side, I guess, to create space on the right-hand side of the, you get what I'm saying, one side or the other. And that just creates the open space you need to position the graphic. And then when that graphic goes away, the camera sort of trucks back and centers the host and the discussion continues. So that's what an over-the-shoulder graphic is. And that's pretty standard in news, sports, a lot of different types of information-based productions. So as I mentioned, the way that's, in a large studio, sort of a professional production, that would typically be done by physically sliding the camera. The other way that you can do that is by simply having enough horizontal field of view, sort of that whole space. You have to make sure that if I slide things over, that I don't sort of have the main camera image go off screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to show a couple of ways that we can do that in vMix using two core techniques here. And so the first one I want to talk about is actually just using a higher resolution camera than your production. So in this case, it would be like a 4K camera being used in a 1080p production. When you do that, you get basically a lot of headroom and a lot of horizontal field to work with. Because what you really are interested in is that core 1080p segment of that larger 4K image that you're working with. So, this would be, if this were the 1080p segment, I'd have half again as much on each side and a double in the height. And so that would be sort of the video I'd catch. So I'm going to just pop over and let me just show you very quickly. I'll sort of pop this in here. If I switch over to the output over here, this would be sort of a 4K video shot that you can see now has an awful lot of headroom in it, and it has the horizontal width. But if I zoomed in on this, I then have sort of a properly framed talking headshot that I could then slide to the sides. So let's go into our vMix preset here, and we'll talk a bit how we can do this. So in this, I'm using one of the shortcuts in vMix is called SwapLayerDynamic. And what SwapLayerDynamic lets me do is I can take and say, move whatever is assigned to layer 1 and swap that with whatever is assigned to layer 2. And all we'll do is take what's in layer 2, put it in layer 1, and put layer 1 in layer 2. But in doing that, it's using the merge transition with both of those elements. So you get sort of a dynamic motion happening with that. So if we look here at the vMix session I have set up, we're going to look at the first couple of inputs that we have set up here. So this first input is just my 4K camera input. In this case, it's just a looping video. But the next input is where I start to do the manipulation. So let me open this input up, and we'll go over to layers. So if you look at this, it looks pretty standard. And I just have sort of a blank background with the first layer in it being that camera shot. But what makes this different, so if I look at this, this is just standard. There is no zoom, nothing on it. But if I look at layer 2, which right now says none, and I were to go in here, I have that pushed in 1.5 times, which is what you would expect. And I sort of push it up, sort of moving up in the Y direction to reframe this. So if I were to look at this, let's go over to the layers here. And if you look at what's in the screen, if I just take and put the same camera into the same room 4K into layer 2, what you see is it snaps in. So what I effectively can do here is by having this set to none, then using SwapLayerDynamic, I create sort of a motion in and out. So I did a few extra things, which we'll talk about, but let me just show you, if we look in the program out over here, if I go in here and set this, what I can do is I can get everything set. I could do something like open the show, zoom in, and sort of do that fade. Now, I'll talk about how we did all of that. But then I have the ability in setting this up to sort of say, I now want to do an over-the-shoulder shot. And that slides over. I get to put the image up as a layer. When I'm done, I can just say, I want to pull that out, and you're set. And in fact, because I'm using for the over-the-shoulder image, I'm using just a list of images, I automatically advance to the next segment list as soon as I slide back. So if I were to open this again, you see now that I have our next topic sort of sitting up there in the corner now as a graphic and going out. So this is sort of a very classic model for doing this, but instead of sliding the camera, what I'm doing is I'm zooming the camera in, and then I am sliding the image back and forth. And that gives me that core framework for doing that. And of course, leveraging the same thing with SwapLayerDynamic, I can also sort of fade out the same way where I do sort of a pullback. And what I'm doing for the pullback, for that fade in and fade out, is I'm just actually using an overlay that when I start that, I trigger it, and it's a very slow overlay of black, which has a fade as the transition. So you get that sort of fade in and fade out. And that's all we're doing. So let me actually jump over here to my scripts, and I can talk a bit about that's over here on my second screen. So these are the scripts, and we just use them sort of like little small scripts inside of vMix for this. But this is the part where we set everything up. that initial sort of putting the show there and everything goes dark. So I have my black input, my fade to black, that I just turn on overlay 1. I make sure that I shut the other overlays that could be on off, so everything's cleared. And then I go in and I make sure that my story image, which I have in a list called story list, is set to index 1, which is pick the first one that we have there. Then I go to sleep for 2 seconds. I make sure that all of my layers are set up, because if you remember, we're using SwapLayerDynamic. So that assumes that the input assigned to the different layers is correct. So this goes and sort of says, put this news camera into layer 1 and clear out layers 2 and 3, because you want to make sure there's nothing there. And then I just cut to the newsroom with everything off. The newsroom is the input feed with those 3 layers. So this is everything that I needed to do to get set up. And then when I want to open the show, all I'm doing is saying swap layer animated in my newsroom and go from input 1 to input 2 over 3000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds. And I sleep a little bit, and then I go and turn around and say, now I want you to take out the overlay of that fade to black image and do that over 1.5 seconds, and that pulls that out. So that sort of does that zoom in with the lights coming up. And everything else after that is I'm just swapping layers. So when I put the over the shoulder shot in, I'm swapping the value that's in layer 2, which now that's zoomed in view, and swapping that with layer 3, which is the zoomed in view pushed to the side and giving you that sort of slide over. And again, just doing that over 1.5 seconds, 1500 milliseconds. While this is taking place, I let it sleep for, basically 1.25 seconds, 1250 milliseconds. And then I pop the overlay up with the story image. And we do the exact opposite for pulling that out. So that's a way that you can do this with a lockdown camera, create a lot of dynamic motion, and use this in some really creative ways to create that over-the-shoulder shot without having to get a slider or have something sort of moving physically in the studio. And that can be especially useful, for like single man or very small crew types of shows. Okay, so that's the first way. So let me see if we have any other comments coming in here. So let's see, we have Pocket Video School. So Mark from Northumberland. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. I appreciate it. And Advent Media from Wolverhampton, UK. Advent Media, thank you very much for joining. Definitely appreciate it here. Okay, so the next piece. For a lot of us, we may not have a 4K camera that we could sort of frame this shot the way I framed it and have that extra vertical space. So the question is then, what do we do? So let me show you something that I set up, which is sort of a slightly different use case, which would be more like for a teacher teaching from home, say this sort of thing. What I have over here is a camera. So I'll sort of cut this in here so you can see. Sorry, I have a layer on. Sorry, just give me a second to shut that off. So this would be your typical camera that I would have coming in, where it's just a standard HD camera, 16:9. And I don't really have anything I could do. So, I mean, if I'm looking at this as a shot and, want to do anything around, positioning or something here, there's nowhere to go. Like if I slide to the exit, that's just open space there. So I don't really have anything I can do directly. But what I can do is sort of fake it. And to do that, what I ended up doing was I created a virtual set extension. Effectively, so let me see if I can slide this over here. I got something. So what I wanted to do is take this image and say, let me visually extend this with a still image on the side. And I did that by using Photoshop, and I asked it to do generative AI. So how did I do this? Well, one of the things you can do in Photoshop is you can open a video. So I could take sort of a video recording of my camera lockdown, just of my set. And that's what I did. I just took this. This is the video coming in. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to start working with. I then copied that as a still frame, and I pasted it into my canvas. And initially that canvas was squared up. So what I said to do is I want to change the canvas size. So I went in here, went over to canvas size. And when I set this up, as opposed to 1920 by 1080, which is what this was, I said, let's go 2880, which is adding a half again over to the side. And I just said, keep the original image locked over to the right of this. And then we're going to fill in the left over here. And I basically just selected this over here. And I said, let's go up and edit. And I got here generative fill. And what you can do with generative fill is just come back and say, I want you to add something to this. So we're gonna go a little crazy, and I will just do something dynamically here. So I'm gonna say generative fill, and I'm gonna go complete. The classroom by extending it from the existing image. So this is not a very complex thing, but we'll see what it comes up with. So I'm having it go off and generate a few things here. Now some of them are probably not going to be good, and you may have to work on this a few times, but in doing this, what you get, so here, this is not a bad one right here, but it gives you, multiple options for, different things it generated to do this. And what I can then do is I can just turn around and save this as an image file. And when I combine this with my moving video, you get basically a horizontal field of view that's wide enough for me to slide over and slide back, even though part of it is still, part of it is my camera. And so that's basically what you have going on over here. This is my camera shot that I have in the right-hand side, and this is the generated image. So that sort of does a bit of a level set for the approach we took. So let me go back to the vMix side, and we'll sort of break this down as to how we executed on this inside vMix. So over here, I have my camera input, and it's just an HD camera input. I then imported my graphic image, and that is that extension that we generated. And then what I did is I took and combined these into let me sort of go to the layers over here. I took, and this is my camera feed coming in, and this is my classroom extension. And so I have these two sort of stitched together. And so you sort of see that's the two of them there. And if you turn one off, you can just see it's just layering these two together. And now for my next input, which is this classroom shot, what I'm doing is I'm taking this combined input, which has the augmented with the camera, and I'm zooming it up because I need to sort of go into fill the screen. I don't want that emptiness on the top and the bottom. So I zoom in to fill the screen. And because I haven't really reprocessed this, I don't lose resolution in the images here because it's just vMix just references the original guy and plays with it whatever way dynamically I'm playing with. So I don't really have much of a resolution loss in any of this. And I can now, though, move this around in different ways. So if I go back, just like we did before, if I look at this and I say, let me go to layer 2, which is my sort of over the shoulder layer, and I'm going to go and say, this is my augmented classroom here, you'll now see that this is the image that I get. So I'm going to be doing a move between the original image and this image to do something with graphics on the side. So this is the sort of the second way we've put this together. Take the camera, take an augmented component, combine them, and then put them into another layer that you can then use to slide everything around and make sure it all stays in sync. So let's actually take a look now, sort of put this in here. And so we have this going over here. So this looks like a kindergarten type class or some lower grade school. So I set up something where I can slide this in and just put up different sort of pictures of animals and slide it out. I can pick, another animal and slide it in and do the same thing. So, starfish, or just go, I have giraffe, all these things. So this just gives you a sense of how you can create something that is a believable camera move, even though we're dealing with a single HD lockdown camera. And I think this, is definitely something that, I didn't take that down. So let me just pull the animal down over here. But I think you get the picture here, where I had the ability now in sliding this in and out to not have to require a higher end camera. I can do it all with a high definition camera and just make this work. And this would work even with something like a webcam, where that may be in your typical teach from home scenario. Somebody may just have a small webcam that they're using, and as long as it gives you a flat enough perspective, doesn't sort of have that fisheye thing, you should be fine, and you can generate the type of image that could match up with the side of it and create a believable slide like this. So that was the second way that I wanted to cover this. So hopefully these two things make sense, and you could see how you could potentially apply them based on your sort of framework and setup for doing this type of production. So everything we talked about here, the scripting is almost identical to what we did for the first one, just a few different moves, but it's the same technical approach once you have the images built. And hopefully that will, that would be something. It's all posted on the link to all the show assets. But let me see now if we have any other comments that have come in. Let's see. So we have Coney from Aachen, Germany. Hopefully I said that correctly. Coney, thank you for joining. And we have Automation. Oh, great to see you here, Automation. Thank you. From Vargada, Sweden. So thank you. I appreciate you joining us here. Okay, so what I'd like to do is we'll wrap up the show and we'll go into our post show now. But I think there are maybe a few more questions that are coming in. I can I'll talk to them in a moment in the post show. But if you can hang around, that would be great. If you can't, I definitely appreciate the time you've spent with us so far today. And I will see you in 2 weeks. So right now, while we're sort of in this post-show period, we're doing it every other week. We will get back to weekly once we kick off season 5. But so I will either see you in 2 weeks or I'll see you in a minute in the post-show. Take care. Hello, welcome back to the post show. This was a fun thing to put together. I kind of enjoyed doing this. But the Pocket Video School has a what I think is a really excellent question here. He says, uh, "What are suggestions on how to do it if you don't have Photoshop and content-aware fill?" So probably the approach I would take is I would just take a photo like of the space you're in, try to frame it up as close as you can to uh, what would be your actual set space that you're going to be working from. And then, as opposed to doing sort of a generative fill kind of thing, you could certainly do something that would just be a photo edit that you put in. And I think one of the key things, so let me actually jump back to this image that we were using. So sort of take the vMix output here, so you can see how we have this set up. So if you look at this, what we have are, I split this, and I'll sort of go in here and do this as I'm talking. This got split in two, where if you look at this classroom extension, if I turn that off, we actually cut this right in the middle of a board, effectively. You know, this is sort of this colored chalkboard with notes on it. If you wanted to do something with a photograph, what I would probably do is I would take and cut this thing and leave the board out completely. And I would create a mask of some kind on my video that could sort of cut out a straight line. So let me actually switch over to the vMix so I can show you what I would probably do is I would cut a line probably sort of right missing this board. So, and then sort of cut around the desk and create a mask on the video here. And then I would put the video in the front, and I would probably put something with a hard edge that sort of would be covered a bit by the video, but fill out the rest of that image. And that would give me sort of a hard line, so it isn't as obvious, like it isn't that soft thing where everything has to match up. Because you're masking, you create some overlap between them. But, you know, I would just do something like that, keep a much simpler thing. But this could give you that kind of shot without having to do something special to generate. And I think that's, you know, definitely something that, you know, might be true for a lot of people where you don't have that ability. I mean, the other thing is to just go online. There are a lot of free AI tools around that could potentially generate something similar for you that would sort of get you into that same zone. So different ways to do it, but that would really be my approach if I wanted to do this using a photo or stock imagery or something else. You definitely could do it that way as well. All right. So, Spatial also made a point. He said, get Affinity Photo. I think I really like, you know, Affinity. They have a couple of different software packages. They are a buy, not rent. So, and they are, you know, relatively speaking, very reasonably priced. I don't remember last time, but it is, you know, two digit, low three digit sort of cost for the suite of applications they make. So definitely, I agree with Spatial that if you want to get a photo application, you can do it. But as I said, there are different ways, but you will need some way to edit what you're doing. You know, create your mask and sort of stitch something together that you're doing from your background. So that's hopefully answered that. So the other thing that I wanted to show people is I set up something which is, it didn't really fit with the theme, but I wanted to use it as a way to show off a little bit of, you know, SwapLayerDynamic some of the things you can do. So one of the things that you will see on like YouTube and other social media is this sort of quick pushing that people do. So what I did, if we just take a look at the output from vMix here, what I created was a simple way using this, SwapLayerDynamic to create that sort of boom in and out, which you see people use that a lot. So this is just another example of how you could do this, where you just have two layers. One layer is set as this pushed in view. The other layer is set as the full wide. And that SwapLayerDynamic, I just set it for 300 milliseconds. So it does a quick boom in and boom out. But that's, again, as you start to think of these different options you have for very quick repositioning of things, that could be very useful. Sort of slow push-ins and pull-outs, things like that you may want to add. But if you're not doing this with a camera person sort of that's controlling, if you're swapping all yourself, having these types of automated things could give you some creative options for what you do. So beyond the over-the-shoulder graphic, there are lots of different things you can do with the SwapLayerDynamic, and hopefully that will get you thinking a bit about that. All right, so let me see if you don't have any other questions or anything on here. I will probably wrap up. I know we've we're still sort of at a reasonable time for the show, but I want to make sure that I make good use of everybody else's time. So I think we are probably at a good point to wrap up. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for hanging out a little while longer for our post show here. If you need to get in touch, please feel free to post something in the comments, message me through Facebook. Lots of ways to get in touch. But hopefully this made sense and is a useful template for some creative ideas that you may have. So until 2 weeks, thank you all, and be safe, be well. I'll see you then.